This is Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review with your CFL Week 13 preview for the upcoming week of Canadian Football League action. I know NFL and college football are in full swing, but let's not forget about some opportunities to make some money north of the border in CFL action, and we're going to look to do that here in Week 13. Starting on Friday night, the Montreal Alouettes take on the Hamilton Tiger Cats to kick off Week 13 in the CFL, and boy, the Montreal Alouettes are an absolute shit show right now. Obviously, there's not going to be many people in the United States that may be keeping tabs on the CFL or what is going on specifically with the Montreal Alouettes, but they're playing horrible football on the field. 3-8 this season. They're 1-5 straight up against the spread in their last 6 games, and now they've got issues off the field as well. Duron Carter got suspended earlier this season for antics on the sideline. Their players have openly criticized their head coach and GM Jim Popp in the media. There's been players spouting off with one another, and now earlier this week in practice leading up to this game against Hamilton, the new starting quarterback, Rakeem Cato, now that Kevin Glenn has been traded from the Alouettes, Cato is the starter moving forward. Well, he got into a bit of a fight and almost a big-time brawl with 2 of his receivers on the practice field, Kenny Stafford and Duron Carter. Players had to intervene, separate everybody so that cooler heads could prevail. It's just an all-around ugly scene right now with this Montreal Alouettes team. They're not playing well. Their offense has been stagnant all season long. They've been held to 18 points or less in each of their last 5 losses. Their defense is supposed to be pretty solid and has been, but they're getting worn out because the offense just isn't sustaining drives. We saw that last week when they lost in BC, 38-27. Don't be fooled by the 27 points Montreal got. They only scored 1 offensive touchdown in that game. Still a very, very shaky, struggling performance from this Montreal offense, and now they've got all these issues off the field. You got players squabbling with one another, players, criticizing the head coach and GM Jim Popp, players fighting in practice. This is an ugly scene. This is a completely damaged locker room as far as I'm concerned. Damaged and beyond repair with this Montreal team. And it's a team that's going nowhere fast. I think they know that. Each of their last 4 of their last 5 losses, have been in blowout fashion. They already lost to Hamilton 31-7 earlier this season in Montreal. They could be into a tough spot here because Hamilton's coming off a bad road loss to Toronto after they had beaten the Argonauts at home last Monday. They did not follow it up with another good performance. Zach Collaros was under pressure from the Argonaut defense most of that game, and they just struggled to move the football. I think Hamilton has a chance to win this game and win this game comfortably, but maybe even better than that. Look toward Hamilton early in the game. We've seen them against Saskatchewan and Toronto win each of their last 2 home games by double digits. I think they're going to be wanting to make a statement early. Maybe Hamilton first half bet may be worth a look in this game, but I'm certainly want no part of the Montreal Alouettes right now. This is a very, very tenuous, very ugly situation developing with this team. Not playing good football on the field and tons of bad situations and bad issues going on off the field right now. So right now, it's Hamilton or pass for me in that Friday night game. Saturday, it's Toronto taking on Winnipeg, the first of 2 games in the CFL on Saturday. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, let's give them credit. They're playing great football. They've won 6 straight games. They keep finding a way to win. But the funny thing is, in their last 2 victories, both against Saskatchewan, I cashed in going against Winnipeg for one reason specifically. They've been favored, and not just favored by a small number. They've been favored by, almost a touchdown or more in the last couple games, and they have just not been very good when laying points this season. Winnipeg now 0-3 against the spread as favorites this season, and now here they are laying close to a touchdown at home against the Toronto Argonauts, and we've also mentioned Winnipeg has not been a very good team either straight up or against the spread at home in recent years. They are playing a little bit better at home at Investors Group Field as of late, but the long-term numbers state that this is not a team that you really want to be backing at home, especially when laying points. What will we get from the Toronto Argonauts here? This was a team that was playing some very mediocre to bad football, but they finally snapped out of it with a very good, complete game against Hamilton. They played very well offensively, and let's give Dan Lefevre, the former Central Michigan standout quarterback, let's give him a lot of credit. Dan Lefevre took the spot of the injured veteran Ricky Ray, for Toronto's last game against Hamilton. And Dan Lefevre played well. He's only been with the team for about a month, but his ability to make plays outside the pocket really gave Hamilton problems. He was fairly accurate for most of the game throwing the football. And the defense stepped up, got some pressure on Hamilton's offensive line, and the secondary finally made some plays. That was an Argos secondary that had really been shredded in recent weeks. They finally stepped up, played a better game. And Winnipeg, as good as they've played, and Matt Nichols hasn't lost since becoming the starting quarterback. He's won 6 straight. Very banged up football team heading into this game as Winnipeg. The injury bug has hit them pretty hard. Running back Andrew Harris got hurt last week. He's no sure thing to suit up for this game. 2 key linebackers for Winnipeg as well. Khalil Bass and Ian Wild also left that game due to injury, and neither of them are a sure thing to play for Winnipeg on Saturday. Ryan Smith, who just came back from injury at wide receiver, he got injured again, and he's already been ruled out. So all of a sudden, some injuries, and they've already been without 2 key cogs in their secondary, and Chris Randall and Macho Harris. So it's a little bit of a banged-up football team. And Toronto played Winnipeg earlier this season in Toronto, and it was with Logan Kilgore at quarterback, and the Argos were blown out in that game. But let's be honest, Dan Lefevre is an upgrade from Logan Kilgore. Anybody, for crying out loud, is an upgrade from Logan Kilgore, who was just an interception machine when he was the starting quarterback for the Argos. I think the Argos can hang around in this game. We're going to come back to this game for Play of the Week in the CFL. I think you already know where I'm going, but we'll end this video getting back to this game. Ottawa taking on Calgary on Saturday. I'll tell you what, Calgary's on fire. I mean, they are playing phenomenal football. At the best team in the CFL, hands down, but they've now beaten Edmonton back-to-back games in the annual Labor Day home-and-home set. A big win in blowout fashion against Edmonton 2 weeks ago here at McMahon Stadium in Calgary. And then last week, when it looked like they were finally going to lose a game, the Stampeders, they fall behind Edmonton by a big score at halftime, but they rally back, they tie the game, they force overtime, and Bo Levi Mitchell in a close game does what he almost always does, and that's find a way to win. And he did that again for Calgary, leading them to a comeback win in overtime last week against Edmonton in what was a heck of a football game. However, they've now basically seized control of the West Division with those 2 wins against Edmonton. They've already won the season series 2-1 against BC, their other main competitor for that first place in that West Division. Now, after all that, you're playing Ottawa at home after 2 intense games with your bitter provincial rivals. Is this a letdown spot for Calgary? I don't know, because Calgary has avoided letdowns and flat performances all season long. They've had about 5 or 6 games already this season where you could say, oh, Calgary's due to suffer a letdown. But have they suffered one? No. So if Calgary brings their A game here against Ottawa, they can win this game, and they can maybe even cover this number and win by double digits, because they've been great at McMahon Stadium pretty much all season long. But I have some doubts about that. If there's ever a time where Calgary takes a deep breath, maybe doesn't look sharp, maybe looks a little bit flat, maybe looks a little bit lethargic, this is that spot. Now the question is, can Ottawa make the most of it? Ottawa's coming off a bye week. That should give them time to get healthy, especially on defense where they had some injuries. It should allow time for Trevor Harris to maybe get some rhythm back with this offense, because he hasn't exactly been lights out sharp since returning from injury the way he was early in the season before he got injured. So maybe a chance for him to get back in rhythm with this Ottawa Red Blacks offense. Ottawa has been very good on the road, 4-1 straight up, 4-1 against the spread on the road this season. They're 7-1 ATS on the highway going back to last year in their last 8 road games. If Ottawa plays well, they're live in this game. But if Calgary plays well, doesn't suffer a letdown, they're a tough team to bet against right now. So it's a very interesting game on Saturday between the Red Blacks and the Stampeders. I can't help but lean a little bit to Ottawa. I have been burned a couple times betting against Calgary. But finally, they didn't cover. They did actually cover last week against Edmonton, but now they're in a price range where they not only have to win, but win big. And I'm not totally sure we're going to see Calgary full-on focus following 2 big-time wins against Edmonton. I mean huge wins against Edmonton for this team in back-to-back weeks. So maybe Ottawa gets the chance to hang around and stay inside this number here, sitting around +8.5, +9 with Ottawa on Saturday. And the Week 13 CFL slate wraps up on Sunday with the Edmonton Eskimos and Saskatchewan Roughriders. You know, Saskatchewan's on a nice little 3-0 against the spread run in their last 3 games. but they lost all 3 games, unfortunately. They lose both games to Winnipeg. They lose to this Edmonton team before that at Commonwealth Stadium, but they covered the number in defeat in all 3 of those games, and they're getting significant points again here. And Saskatchewan is yet to show me that they've thrown in the towel. They've still only won 1 game this season. It's been a disaster of a year for Chris Jones in his first year as head coach and GM of this team, but the effort's there. They're trying. They keep wanting to win games. They've come close against Winnipeg in 2 straight weeks to finally winning one, but still haven't been able to get over the hump. You just wonder now that they've still only won a single game this season. Are they finally about to say, enough is enough, and do what a UFC fighter does when they've had enough? Are they ready to tap out the Saskatchewan Roughriders on what has been just a dismal season for them? I'm really worried about that here in this spot against Edmonton. I know the effort's been there even in the bad times, but this could be the week where they finally say enough. We're not going anywhere. We've given it our best shot. We're still not winning. What's there left to play for? So that's a concern. And you got to believe Edmonton is going to come into this game desperate a little bit. Back-to-back losses against Calgary, their rival, over the last couple weeks, Labor Day weekend and again last weekend, losing both games to Calgary. They've got the way better offense, obviously. Mike Riley to his receivers, Adarius Bowman, Darrell Walker, Nate Kuhorn, Chris Getzlaff, and Saskatchewan's defense has played better lately, actually, but they can't match Edmonton offensively, especially if Edmonton's got their A game. We've seen Saskatchewan's offense continue to sputter. They were just woeful offensively last week in the 17-10 loss to the Blue Bombers. This is one week where I'm laying off Saskatchewan. I've cashed 3 tickets in a row with them. In fact, I was on Saskatchewan the last time these 2 teams played in Edmonton, but Saskatchewan was getting almost 2 touchdowns as an underdog in that game. Now they're only catching, 4.5, 5? As a home underdog here, not enough points. In fact, I think Edmonton, if they come out focused, they should win this game, potentially cover this number as well on Sunday. All right, let's wrap up our CFL Week 13 preview video. It is Play of the Week time for Week 13 in the CFL, and we are going to go back to the Toronto-Winnipeg game on Saturday, a 2 p.m. Eastern Time start, and we are going to see if Winnipeg's recent point spread failures continue. They've now dropped to 2 straight games against the point spread. They're 0-3 against the spread when laying points this season, and I think they're going to be in tough to win this game at all, let alone win by margin. Let's take Toronto +6 over the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. That's rotation number 293. Toronto +6 against Winnipeg on Saturday. We talked about it. Dan Lefevre looked good last week in his first start with the Argos. The defense finally made some plays. Winnipeg's got some injury issues and some attrition to deal with going into this game, including cluster injuries at linebacker. That could be a little bit of a vulnerable spot for the Bombers, considering you've got a mobile quarterback in Dan Lefevre on the other side for Toronto, who may be able to take advantage of a somewhat depleted linebacking core this week for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Let's take Toronto +6 to see if they can hang in there with Winnipeg and maybe even pull off the outright win. Argos +6, CFL Week 13 Play of the Week. All right, that'll wrap up my CFL Week 13 preview. I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. Reminder, on Thursday, we've got college football, Friday, NFL. And a reminder, as always, too, check out sportsbookreview.com for the best sports books there are, the ones you can trust, the ones you can make some money betting at, for bonuses. All of that information, live odds, sportsbookreview.com, your complete resource for getting the best sports betting information and giving you the best chance to win.
Always on the go? Bet365 has one of the top mobile platforms in today's market. Sign up today and don't let your busy life keep you out of the game.